Good Thursday morning, everybody. Welcome into the Volquest Mailbag Podcast. I'm Eric Kane. Grant Ramey, Brent Hubbs, and Austin Price. As always, a big thanks to Exterior Home Solutions for making this coverage possible. You can get a free estimate today by giving them a call at 865-524-5888. And you can win a free roof from Exterior Home Solutions by nominating a deserving family at exteriorhomesolutions.com/makeover. That ends October 1st, so go ahead and get in those nominations today. But it's Exterior Home Solutions. It's the roofing choice for East Tennessee for quite some time. Appreciate their partnership over there. We got a whole lot of fun to get into today. A lot of questions. Tennessee getting ready for the home opener with Austin Peay. That'll be a 5 o'clock kick at Neyland Stadium on Saturday. We'll go ahead and jump in with Sam Smith, 22-33. How much would you rotate the offensive line this week playing a bad FCS team, Grant?
To quote Kevin Hart, you do you, boo-boo. So if you're gonna rotate guys all year long, do it against Austin Peay. Whatever the end game is here, if you're wanting to find 5 guys and stick with them, then start that process of finding 5 guys and sticking with them. But if you're going to keep rotating all season long, don't stop against Austin Peay.
Every combination you ever wanted to look at, I would look at in this game.
Austin?
Yeah, I mean, a ton. I mean, I would rotate. I'd get a bunch of bodies, work. But, I mean, specifically with those starting 7 or 8, I would, as Hub just said, I would look at anything that you're wanting to tinker with. If you're wanting to put Dane at center and move Ollie to left guard or whatever, do it.
Nashville 615, favorite Condress Holloway story, whether it be football related or off the field, Brent?
Condress, when he used to cover or work the gate at practice, I don't know why he was working the gate. He was out watching practice during kind of lulls in practice or during stretch, whatever. He would always grab a football, and sometimes we'd be out there just kind of throwing a football around, and he would walk over and immediately grab your hand and fix your throwing mechanics. He was always trying to tell everybody how to throw a football and how to help you throw a football. He's a treasure, and he's a guy that loves Tennessee. I had a chance to hang out with him on the road some and hear stories, and he's a great storyteller about not just his time at Tennessee, but in the Canadian Football League and all baseball and everything else. Just a guy who was a lot of fun and is a lot of fun to sit around and hear stories from and talk to. So I've always enjoyed learning as much as I can about Tennessee football and his life story, because it's pretty incredible.
Brent, did you drive to Alabama for his commitment ceremony, or how'd you cover it?
No, I was not in attendance for that one, Grant. I think I had school drop off that morning. That's how old I am, right?
Got you.
Okay, we'll go to Nashville 94. A few weeks into the high school football season, are there any new names, Austin, popping up on Tennessee's board?
No, not as of now. Normally that happens, mid-September. So I would expect if there's anything new to be popping up in the next, 2 to 3 weeks. So that's kind of where it's at right now.
And now we'll move on to I Missed Denarius Moore. As you look forward to next season's depth chart, where does the staff need to start developing players and providing playing time? It says he knows that it's a next man up approach on defense, but can't help but look at how senior heavy Tennessee is and worry about certain spots in this offense. A lot of seniors on the offensive and defensive lines, a lot of seniors in the defensive backfield at linebacker. This team's littered with seniors, be good and bad thing, but plenty to replenish, Grant, looking at 2024.
I don't know where you start. Saturday against Austin Peay, your best chance to play as many freshmen as you can. It feels like this team is all seniors and all freshmen. It feels like there's no in between on this roster. So I don't know which position group you would pick first, Hubs or Austin, if y'all have one of those. But I don't think there's really a bad place you could start or mention.
Well, it's pretty simple for me. It's the young offensive linemen. I mean, they've got to figure out where they're going to go there, Hubbard. I mean, you look at both lines of scrimmage. Eric says, that they're senior heavy, and he's absolutely right. But there are some young pieces on the defensive line you really like. Offensive line, I think there's a lot that you just don't know about, and they've got to figure out what it's about and figure out if they need to how big they're going to have to go into the portal at the end of the year. I mean, obviously they're signing around 5 offensive linemen in this class, but they're going to have to go to the portal because I think you can't go in here relying on a bunch of freshmen to come in here and block for you a year from now. So I think they need to figure out where they're at with some of these guys that are going to be sophomores and juniors a year from now.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm to add to that a little bit. I think because they rotate so much on the defensive side of the ball now, there's going to be a natural progression of that development. Because look, I mean, Joshua Joseph's going to play. You're going to see Caleb Herring more as the season goes along. I don't know how much you'll see a guy like Nathan Robinson or some of those guys in the interior, but you also have some veterans there who have a chance to come back for another year if they elect to do so. On the offensive side of the ball, they're rotating offensive linemen, but they're rotating veteran with a veteran. You know what I'm saying? It's not like they're rotating a senior and saying, okay, let's get this freshman or a redshirt freshman here a few series and develop him as you go. So my biggest question about this team is, and why you have to take advantage of games like this is with those young offensive linemen. That's why I said earlier in the week, Javante Spraggins, I'm getting him off the field as quick as I can. And I'm trying to get to some of those guys who you may not get them on the field again this year. You don't know. And so you better take a look at some of those guys and let them figure out where they are and how much they need to develop moving forward.
And speaking of which, BFacker 43 wants to know, how soon do you see Nico on Saturday? When do we need to see Nico get in there and get his first action?
Well, I think it's not just Nico. I mean, I think you've got to, and again, I've been on this soapbox all week. I mean, I wouldn't bring those starters back out to start the second half if the first half goes the way it's supposed to. I'm getting those guys off the field as fast as I can get them off the field. I don't need to see Aaron Beasley play 30 snaps in this game, right? I don't need to see Joe Milton play a bunch of snaps in this game. This is not about stats. Now, there's some guys, I think Dante Thornton needs more work because he's got to get more acclimated into this deal. I don't need to see a bunch of Ramel Keaton. Let's see Caleb Webb. Let's see Chaz Nimrod. I think it's not just the quarterback position. I think across the board, in my opinion, you get to those guys just as fast as you can get to them because, again, you don't know when you're going to get another opportunity like this.
Also, do you have anything different about Nico? I mean, I think it's pretty important to get him at least a half's worth of work, right? I mean, you don't want to, I think Graham might have said this earlier in the week, you don't want to give Nico 3 or 4 drives and then give Gaston Moore some drives. Like, I mean, you need to play Nico. You need to get him as much playing time as physically possible, and you're not going to get a better opportunity than here this Saturday with Austin Peay.
Yeah, and, I do think it's important to let him run the full offense too. Like, put some of those young receivers in there with him. I mean, I think it's important to let him play with some older guys too, especially when he first gets in. But even in the fourth quarter, if you're up a bunch, I mean, I think you're letting him run the full offense. Don't sit there and just hand off. I mean, like, I think, you're a play away from him being your quarterback at any time. And I just think that he needs as much game action as he can get.
I would give him the entire second half because, like Joey Halsey talked about on Tuesday, you need to get past that adrenaline spike of it's game day, it's Neyland Stadium. There's a pretty big crowd here. It's obviously not going to be the most intense atmosphere in the second half of a game against Austin Peay, but just to feel a little bit normal on the field, live bullets flying, all that stuff, and to kind of get past that, I guess, that newness of it.
After watching a week 1 of the SEC slate, this is from Hard Hat Vol, which game do you feel better about in regards to the Vols' chances, and which one do you think will be harder than originally thought? I think the first game that'll come to mind for every Tennessee fan will be Florida. Florida looked like crap against Utah. Of course, Tennessee goes to the swamp week after next, but A&M, South Carolina looked really, really bad. Of course, Alabama won, Georgia won, all that. Any game in particular, Austin, that kind of stands out to you that will be reflective whenever Tennessee plays this team in the future?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to go Alabama on the road. I think Alabama's good. I don't, as of right now, it's one game against MTSU, but, I wasn't just enamored with them. Like, oh, yeah, okay. It did, when I watched them, I didn't sit around and think, man, those skill guys are unguardable, and that defense is, you're not going to be able to do anything against them. Like, I think they're good. Now, what do they look like this week? My opinion may change after they play Texas. My opinion could be enforced, or it could I could be doing a 180 depending on how they play the Longhorns. But for right now, for me, it's Alabama.
Yeah, and for me, on the other side of it, it's probably A&M, right? Let's see what A&M looks like on the road. That could change if they don't play well against Miami this week. But I mean, you knew A&M had a lot of talent. They looked really fast. I mean, they looked gifted. I thought that game would be a challenge for Tennessee, and I think it will be. They didn't do anything to tell me that game is not going to be a challenge for Tennessee when they come to Knoxville. So that would be the one team. Again, it may change in week 2, but I thought they looked pretty organized, pretty in sync, and you saw some of those young guys who were thrust into the field last year assert themselves and show up a little bit. I think their defensive front's pretty good.
What I didn't understand, what I still don't understand, Eric and I were driving back while this was happening, but I opened my phone and Georgia's up 7-0 on UT Martin at home with like 5 minutes left in the second quarter. Like that's difficult for me to wrap my brain around. Even if you're not really trying to do anything, if you're Georgia, it feels like you're going to accidentally be up 21-0 after 3 drives. So I haven't gone back and watched that game. I don't plan to, but that one was a surprise to me, I guess, that it was so they looked a little human, I guess, based on the score.
Yeah, and the interesting thing about that game to me is that there was all this talk, Eric, about Georgia's improved weapons, and they've got more weapons on the perimeter and things like that. I didn't think they showed up particularly well in game 1. Now the tight end's legit. We all know how good Brock Bowers is. But where some of those, there was all the talk about the Missouri transfer at receiver, right? He was all the rage. They were pretty, uninspiring from a passing game in week 1. Now we'll see how they build moving forward, and they're really good on defense. But I think a lot of people are expecting a really explosive offensive show in the passing game, and you didn't get that, whether that was by design or whether that was just, guys didn't play very well in their first game. I don't know, but that was a little bit surprising to see them kind of be pedestrian on offense, particularly in that first half.
Yeah, I mean, I think of the skill positions for Georgia, you got better from last year. Understand you lost a quarterback who won you 2 straight national championships, and that's huge. But from a skill position, you probably got better, and what a luxury it is to have an All-American tight end, Brock Bowers, while you try to figure that out in the early going. So I think Georgia's going to be fine. But you're right, it was a little slow out of the gate, and that's a little bit surprising, especially the level of competition they were playing in week 1.
Well, I want to add to that just for a brief minute here. I'm interested to see if they were to lose a game early. Like, Kirby's getting the hall pass on all these arrests. And I mean, you got a staffer now that did it again this week. They got Roscoe with with the speed traps down there. I mean, like it is bizarre to me that all these people keep getting pulled over. You talk about Groundhog Day. It just goes on and on and on. So my question is like, do you all think, if he were to lose a game or 2 this year, all of a sudden that flips? I mean, they're not, I'm not trying to make a mountain out of a molehill here, but nobody is addressing the elephant in the room here. How much do you think that gets talked about there being kind of, the hands off the wheel of it, so to speak, if they were to lose a game with all the off-season stuff that's went on?
It'll 100% be a storyline. It'll be, there'll be columns that night. Because Georgia's supposed to win every single game it plays. So as soon as you lose one, the focus wasn't there, attention to detail wasn't there. They were goofing off in the off season. They weren't working out. I mean, yeah, it's going to be loud and in your face as soon as they lose. So will they lose? We'll see. But especially a game again, like if Georgia loses to Tennessee at Neyland, like that's not a shocker at all. But if Georgia were to lose a game before Tennessee, that would definitely be a shocker.
Yeah, they're not losing.
Yeah,
with that schedule. With that schedule,
does Gibbs play a tougher schedule, Brent?
No, not this year. Seriously. I'm not trying to be mean, but they're not going to lose at Auburn. Hugh Freeze's not going to beat them in year 1.
Everybody loves Hugh, though. There's freeze warning.
Yeah, okay. South Carolina's offensive front. Do we think they're going to hold up against Georgia in a couple of weeks? They got Ball State this week. UAB. You think Trent Dilfer is going to go in there and scheme up Kirby Smart and put 35 or 40 on the board against him? That schedule for them is set up for them to cruise. I don't see them dropping a game until again, the Tennessee game, perhaps. But the one thing you can say about this with Kirby Smart's teams, whether you like Kirby Smart or you dislike Kirby Smart, his teams typically have gotten better throughout the year. And they played their best football at the end of the year compared to the start of the year. There have been a couple of games. Now, last year was an exception because they beat the brakes off Oregon, right? I mean, but they struggled offensively. Their defense beat Oregon, and it's like, okay, yeah, Stetson Bennett can't win the big game, and then all of a sudden you look, come middle of the year, late in the year, they start scoring points, and they just kind of get better as they go, which I think will be the case. Now, the whole Mike Bobo thing is interesting because I don't think Monken got enough credit for what he did offensively to score points in a style of play that Kirby Smart wants to play, which is not take a whole lot of risks and give the ball back to the other team anytime soon, because he wants to ride that clock, particularly when they get a lead.
Vol for Live says, how we feeling about Danny Okoye? Feels like Oklahoma took the lead after this current, or after here lately. Looks like he took the lead, of course. That one is big for Tennessee. One of the biggest targets still left on the board is Tennessee trying to close out this class.
Yeah, I think he's going to Oklahoma unless he makes it here for an official visit at the end of the month. That's kind of where I'm at with it. They seem like they've got all the momentum there, and they obviously did a good job of using their commits to lean on him this past weekend, and so on and so forth. And again, the kid's from Oklahoma, right? Always knew like if he took a visit there, that would be worrisome. And so, obviously they were able to leave a big impact. Now, if he makes it back here, Tennessee will have a shot. Just like if Chris Cole makes it here this weekend, Tennessee's gonna have a shot. Now, again, Chris Cole's supposed to be here, but you never know. Crazier things have happened where kids, cancel visits and stuff at the last minute. So, I think it's all about getting them back on campus, especially with Okoye and Cole.
AP is, with Cole, it's Tennessee, Georgia is what everybody thinks. Is there anybody in the weeds out there that maybe we've just kind of dismissed because of distance? Or, I know Miami.
Yeah, USC.
Is the USC thing real, you think, with him?
Yeah. Go to lunch with Bronny James out there in LA, and, that stuff leaves an impression on kids. And, again, like everybody has to decide what they want to do with recruiting when it comes to NIL, and every school's different. And so, we'll see Tennessee again. If he makes it to campus this weekend, it'll be a really short visit, but you'll have a puncher's chance, and we'll see if Tennessee can knock it out of the park. But it feels like USC does have some momentum here. Exiting this past weekend with Chris Cole.
Speaking of kind of recruiting, ball in South Carolina says, any chance Sammy Brown looks around if Clemson implodes?
I don't think so. I don't think they're going to implode. They're still going to win a majority of their games, right? Like they've won 10 games in a season, however many seasons in a row. Like it's the ACC. Like, they're still going to win enough games to where I don't think the bottom's falling out enough for Sammy Brown to look around.
And if he looked around, it probably would be Georgia, right?
Georgia. Yep, that's right.
Tennessee was third there. I don't think Georgia would tell him no, but I don't. We'll see where what's going to be fascinating with Clemson with me and Grant. You can jump in here. Everybody can jump in here. They've had this policy that you can't take a visit after you commit, right? Yep. So what happens if they lose to Florida State? Do some of those commits say, you know what, Coach, I'm not sure where you're going. I'm going to take a visit. And if that's the case, is Dabo and his staff going to cut those guys if they want to take a visit? Listen, it's easy to sell. You can't take a visit when you're 10, 11 wins, 12 wins every year. You're in the college football playoff. You're this, that, and the other. That's an easier thing to kind of hold over a kid. The kid's going to have some leverage if Clemson's out of the hunt in 3 weeks. And not a factor at it all. I'm going to be interesting to see kind of if they back off that policy and sort of what happens there if some kids want to take a visit. Because remember this about kids, Grant. They know and understand they got more leverage than they've ever had in the college game right now.
And Dabo better know he has less leverage than he's ever had. The way that obviously you win 16 and 18 titles, that's great. You've built something huge at Clemson, but to get handled the way they did at Duke Monday night, that wasn't a fluke. That was a beatdown. That was a terrible performance by Clemson, a really great performance by Duke. And I think you have to reevaluate your policies, whatever they are, and make changes moving forward because your program's obviously not where you want it to be. So it's hard to have those policies and expect kids to stick to them when, like you said, there's no leverage from Dabo's side of it. The kids are going to have all the leverage.
Couple more here from Ball and SC. I don't know if this is for this year or just in general of who's on the team, who's on the roster right now, but I'll just say for this year, could Tennessee have multiple running backs drafted? I would say no.
Anybody? I would say no.
Yeah, no.
No.
D. Williams. This is a question on the board earlier this week, or maybe in the chat. I can't remember. D. Williams, best punt returner at Tennessee since when?
Cordero Patterson. I think he's better than Cam Sutton. And Evan Berry was only a kickoff guy. And
Bayless was just punt until he came here and he learned to do kicks. Or sorry, it was the other way around. He was just kicks and then he learned to do punts.
Yeah,
Evan
since CP returning punts.
Evan Berry came to mind just as a returner in general because it felt like every time he touched the ball, he was going to get a pretty good chunk of yardage, and that's the way it feels like with D. Just the way D returns it. I mean, the way he stays north and south and he cuts hard and he gets up the middle of the field, it feels like anytime he touches the ball, he's going to get a pretty good chunk of yards.
Yeah, the difference, he reminds you a lot of Cam Sutton, the way he maneuvers and cuts and sees the field. I think he's a little better than Cam. The thing about Evan Berry, however, is like he was so hard to bring down. Like, how many yards after contact did he get? And you go back to that 2016 Georgia game. How instrumental was the return after the penalty for celebration that got Tennessee into position to throw the Hail Mary?
Well, Evan can run, and Evan was a guy who trusted the hole was going to be there. I mean, he never danced. He was catch it and get completely vertical and go wherever the hole was supposed to be. That was the way he played. And his teammates believed in him. They blocked it up really well. D is a guy that I think has really good vision, which is why the offensive question you asked earlier this week is a bit intriguing. Although he's not going to play on offense, I think he's got really good vision. He's faster than Cam Sutton. In my opinion, got more of a burst there. I think that if people continue to punt him the football, he's going to break records at Tennessee this year. If I'm scouting Tennessee, I'm putting the ball out of bounds. I'm just putting away from him. I'm not going to let him return kicks. I don't know how many people are going to kick to him moving forward, but if they do, then they're risking some bad things to happen because the guy's super dynamic with the ball in his hands.
You want me to completely oversell D. Williams and show my Chicago Bears fanboy? He reminds me of Devin Hester.
Oh, I knew you were going
because
there.
Wow. Devin Hester's skill was setting up a return team to make one hard cut and get up the middle of the field and find a crease. And he was just hard to get a hand on. It feels like D. Williams is hard to get a hand on.
I mean, most returners are, yeah.
I'm not saying he's Devin Hester.
Are you saying he's a Hall of Famer, one of the best to ever play?
Devin's not a Hall of Famer. He should be.
He absolutely should be as a returner, yeah.
But just the way he feels like D just sets him up for one hard cut to get past that first wave, and it feels like after that, it's how are you going to get him down? And that's the way it felt like with Hester too.
Does that mean CP's a Hall of Famer then?
CP was on the All-Decade team.
CP's a running back. He's a wide receiver. He's a kick returner. He's a punt returner. He definitely has had an insane career.
We've talked about the Tennessee game all week. We break it down ad nauseum, right? Like getting the guys in early, getting Joe out of the game, getting this guy out of the game. D. Williams could honestly hurt Tennessee trying to get to that point because he returns one or two punts, one for a touchdown, another one deep in territory, and leaves you on a short field. That's good to get the lead up, but as far as trying to get
they're not punting to D. Williams on Saturday.
Dude, they punted to him all week last week.
Yeah, but I mean, listen, and also the Virginia coaching staff said we were surprised by Tennessee's speed and their depth. Did you not do any research? Also,
what have you done all offseason? Yeah,
I mean, come on.
On the flip side, Austin, I'd be more worried about Jackson Ross not getting many opportunities to try to right the wrongs punting.
I think that's fair. I think that's a fair point, a good point.
We got a couple more questions to get into here on the Volquest podcast, but as always, want to give a shout out and a big thank you to our friends Exterior Home Solutions for making all this coverage possible.
Exterior Home Solutions will make one family's dream come true.
Do you know a family in need of a new roof?
Maybe it's leaking or needs repaired.
Whatever the needs may be, Exterior Home Solutions is going to give one lucky family an Exterior Home makeover.
To nominate a family that you think is deserving, simply go to the website at exteriorhomesolutions.com/makeover and you can make your nomination there.
Exterior Home Solutions wants to give the gift of home to one lucky family.
As always, a big thank you to our friends Exterior Home Solutions. You can win a free roof. Nominations up until October the 1st, exteriorhomesolutions.com.
What do you think about doing a Hubs makeover?
I need one.
He's got a Sergio Garcia shirt on today. I mean, and I mean like 1999 Medina scissor kick Sergio.
It's because you scolded me for having a T-shirt on and told me I didn't look professional.
It was a sleep shirt.
Here I am.
It was a sleep shirt.
It was not a T-shirt.
Was it a gown?
No, it was not a gown.
It was like
he had the triangle hat on.
It was like some I saw Saturday at Nissan Stadium.
Okay.
You're terrible.
Got a couple here from Athrun. How's it looking with Chris Cole a couple days ahead of the visit? You mentioned earlier, keep tabs, make sure he gets here, but what's it looking like with Chris Cole?
Well, I mean, again, it feels like USC's got a lot of momentum out of the visit last week. I don't know if you read Chad Simmons' update on him, but, it feels like, USC's got some momentum there. Georgia's obviously in play, so is Tennessee. Tennessee's got to get him here this weekend. It's a short, abbreviated visit. He's going to be here like 25 hours or something like that. And then, hopefully you can leave enough of an impression. But, I've never had Tennessee as the team to beat here. I thought they had a real shot with him coming back in. That was based off the fact that I did not think USC was in play. Now that USC's in play, I think things got a little tougher for Tennessee.
Based on the Virginia game, does it look like Sampson is actually the second back and not Small? According to Grant's snap counts, according to who actually went in the game in the chronological order, Brent, it would appear that Dylan Sampson was, the option ahead of Jabari Small.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're 2A and 2B.
I agree.
I think it's a little bit situational. They clearly wanted to get to something on that opening drive in the passing game with Dylan Sampson there. So I think Dylan Sampson's better in the open field. I think Jabari Small's got more power right now between the tackles. Small has a hard time keeping his balance. There's a couple of runs that look like could be really big runs, but he kind of stumbled over his feet. And I think Jalen Wright's far and away ahead of both of them right now.
I think Jalen Wright's maybe the best player on this football team. I think the best offensive player they have. I think it's what I told Eric when we were leaving was the guy that everybody talked about all fall camp. It felt like that was the Jalen Wright that we saw for all that game. So, yeah, I think it's Jalen. And then after that, and maybe it changes week to week, but Dylan was the second guy on the field. He was they split the touches pretty evenly, but just based on the rotations, what it looked like to me, he was the number 2 running back.
How would you say the tight ends performed? Never notice them unless they make or drop a catch or miss a block. Austin, I think that's a good thing, right? If you're not noticing the tight ends, it means likely they're doing a pretty good job. A lot of inline blocking split out. How do you think Castles and Warren did against Virginia?
Well, Warren caught a touchdown. It's the first touchdown he's caught in a while, and McAllen Castles had a nice catch on a little bit of a screenplay, and he got up the field and showed some athleticism. So, I thought they were fine. I like when they work the tight ends, and I'd love to see them use Jacob's big 6'7" frame more down around the goal line.
I thought Castles blocked pretty well for his first go of it. I really did. I think that Tennessee doesn't run the football that effectively unless the tight ends are blocking. And, they use those guys in a variety of different ways, depending on what the run call is. Sometimes there's a lead blocker, in the inside zone stuff. Sometimes there's a kick out block on the outside stuff. I thought Castles for his first game was pretty doggone physical, probably a little more physical than I anticipated him being.
Here's the deal. We had him out to tape of a Vol Club Confidential for next week the other night, and he told me that he did a lot of blocking at UC Davis because he had to, but he had no coaching on the blocking at UC Davis. So he goes, I was always willing and I did it, but I was a fish out of water. I didn't understand technique. I didn't understand any of that. And the fact that Alec Abelin is an old offensive lineman, I think has helped him pick up the blocking stuff much easier because there is a significant want to there from him based off my talk with him a couple of days ago. See, I thought he just split out all the time, and then when he kind of went over what all he did out there, but he just wasn't, didn't have the proper technique and stuff that made a lot more sense.
Line time 0423. Grant, what would benefit Tennessee more this weekend, Texas or Alabama winning the game?
Gosh, I don't know. I don't know really how it makes a difference for Tennessee. You're going to get a shot at Alabama either way. So I guess Alabama winning and staying undefeated until you get a shot at them in October. I don't know.
I don't think if Alabama loses that their season's over. I mean,
No.
like, I don't think that means. I mean, it may, as a fan, give you more hope because Alabama lost at home to Texas. Maybe I mean, if that's what you're asking, but in terms of what it means for the Tennessee game, I don't think it has any bearing. I don't think Alabama's going to fall apart and Nick's going to lose his team, AP, if they lose to Texas. I don't think the culture is going that way at Alabama.
No, if anything, I think it just makes – but the likelihood is if they lose, what happened? The quarterback played bad, which means I think you could end up seeing a quarterback change, which, to me, again, Milroe has got some deficiencies there. I mean, he throws it okay. He's not terrible, not great either. But obviously he is a thrill a minute when it comes to running the football. And so, I think that'd be where you would see the change.
Brent, this is a good one for you. Do a little Vol after seeing it in a game setting. Again, just one game. I think you need to see it for a couple of games to have a true opinion on it. But do you think the new clock rule helps Tennessee, hurts Tennessee, or makes no difference?
If the defense is getting 3 and outs, it's not going to make any difference. I mean, you didn't notice the clock rule for Tennessee on Saturday because Virginia couldn't stay on the field. The challenge and where you're going to see that, and I think Josh Heupel was talking about, you need to see a few weeks of this. If you get somebody who really milks the clock and slows the tempo down and you can't get off the field on third down with them, then they can eat the clock up. I mean, that's what happened in the UCLA game. I mean, Chip Kelly was – at the half and post game is lamenting the clock rules. Well, I mean, part of that, Grant, was, Coastal Carolina had 2 6-minute drives out of their first 3 or 4 drives in that game and just took the air out of the ball. So if you have somebody who can do that, then the clock rules are going to show up. If you don't, then I don't think you're going to notice the clock rules. I didn't notice it at all on Saturday. I mean, I didn't feel like Tennessee lost any possessions. But that's because Tim Banks' guys were getting 3 and outs. So for it to work against an up-tempo team, somebody's going to have to be able to stay on the field and milk the clock, which is what we've, always seen in the past. I mean, I don't know that you're going to see 10-minute drives because of the clock rule. You might see a 7-minute instead of a 6-minute drive, but I don't know that you're going to see that much of it. Now, all this talk about all the extra commercial time, I mean, for the new clock rules, that game wasn't any faster. No college football game this weekend was any faster than it was the year before. So if you're not going to fix that part of it, what's the point in the new clock rule? I kind of agree with the coaching staffs on that are out there complaining about the clocks.
Got to pay the bills. I agree with Brent. That's what makes Florida so interesting to me is Virginia's not a very good offense. Tennessee's defense looked great, but Virginia's pretty awful on the offensive side of the football. Now you got an FCS opponent in week 2. And then you go to Florida in week 3, and Florida, didn't look great at Utah, obviously, on a national stage, but they do got 2 good running backs, and they're probably going to try to, if I were Billy Napier, I'd be trying to run the football and milk as much clock as I could and try to keep it running to keep the ball out of Tennessee's hands. So that's what makes Florida so interesting to me because of the point Brent made about the clock, and that might be the first time you really notice it.
You were mumbling. I couldn't hear you. Sorry.
Sorry, you're trying too hard, Eric. Keep going.
Had to get that in there. Trying hard to read the questions here. Sloppy Vol, after one game, give an outlandish prediction, positive, for the team or player by season's end. So how many touchdowns Dylan Sampson going to have, AP?
I was going to go James Pierce leads the SEC with 14 sacks.
That's a good one.
I'm going to go with D. Williams breaks every Tennessee punt return, single season punt return record.
Tyler Barron is all SEC and a higher draft pick and stays on the field.
Dylan Sampson, 52 touchdowns. Did I do that math right? 4 times 13? Yeah, 52. I don't know. It's never been my strong suit.
Pounding Thrill, how surprised were you by Dante Thornton's lack of targets impact? Austin, I think you spoke on this on the roundtable the other day. It was just week 1, but I think all of us were kind of expecting like big splash play Dante Thornton, and that'll come, but it didn't in week 1.
See, I think it happened. I'm surprised it didn't happen last week more. But you know what? I mean, like, how many times have outside of Hubs throwing out a wild DeAndre Johnson prediction, like, how many predictions on how a game's going to play out really turn out to be right? I mean, like, we can sit here and dream it up all we want to on how the game's going to be played Saturday, and you end up with a T-Mac pick in short field and then a pick 6, and all of a sudden you're up 14-0, and Joe's had the ball for like 20 yards. So I mean, like, you just don't know how the games are going to go, and so I would venture to say that they can just let him run right by the Austin Peay secondary Saturday if need be, and try to get him going with an early deep ball. But I was surprised he had less targets, I guess, than he had.
Well, and I think part of it was the offensive plan. They were throwing it more sideways than they were vertical, which plays more to Squirrel's hand. Here's the other thing too, Grant. Dante Thornton's a talent, but he was not a guy who just put up just stupid, crazy numbers at Oregon in his time there. The legend of Dante Thornton has grown throughout fall camp with comments made, by coaches and teammates, which probably created some unrealistic expectations for game one. I don't think there's anything wrong with Dante Thornton. I'm not suggesting that, but he was kind of built up as a whole lot of something before he ever played in this offense.
There you go. And we're as guilty of doing that.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, if you follow, the offensive coordinator called him a freaky athlete.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, exactly. 100%. If he calls him a freaky athlete, what are we going to do? Ignore it? And there was always a disconnect between how glowingly people talked about him and what the stats said at Oregon, like Hub said. And at the same time, I think there's just a little bit more comfort between Joe and Squirrel from what they did last year, playing, second team together, and what they did late in the season. I don't think you should be too surprised that Squirrel started over Dante or got more targets than Dante. And also I think it's part of, like Brent talked about, with the scheme. There wasn't a ton of deep balls. There wasn't a ton of trying to go over the top against Virginia. It was just take what you can get and go down the field that way. So it's week one. People are going to overreact, but see what he looks like a month from now.
Go Mark 73. Can we expect this to be a more run-heavy offense this year? I think, Austin, a big reason why they ran it so much is because Virginia allowed them to do it, and Tennessee just took what Virginia was giving them. Yeah,
it all depends on what the defense is giving them. But I do think that they do like their tailbacks. I do think, what is run more, right? Is it 3% more?
Tennessee already runs an awful lot to begin with.
Yeah, they do. And it's very balanced. Could they run it a fraction more? Sure, they could. I think it'll depend on the game and how the defense plays and your opponent.
Well, one of the things, Grant, I appreciate about Josh Heupel, and I appreciate about what he does with his offense is, nobody takes more what the defense gets. He's, most of these guys are, hey, I got to get on my Waffle House play sheet, right? I got to get to all of my stuff, and we got to get over the top and show them we can do this. It's pretty simple. You're going to line up with 6 in the box. They're going to run the football. That's why Tennessee's always run it more than they've thrown it since Josh Heupel's been the head coach at Tennessee. I appreciate the fact that he has that kind of patience to really dictate it. If you're going to try to do that, that's fine. We got no problem running it right down your throat.
And they spent the first couple drives against Virginia doing that, and then it felt like they got away from it a little bit, and then they went right back to it, and they got back to scoring however many touchdowns on however many possession span that was, where they really took over the game and made it a blowout. So, yeah, stick with what you got. I think that's the best position group you got on the team. If they're going to if Jalen Wright's going to run for 9.6 a pop, then feed it to him all day.
Last one goes to Vol_Nation 3. Will they open the playbook up a little bit more against Austin Peay, or will it look a lot like what happened in the Virginia game?
I think that they're going to – I think they'll take the top off of it. I think it'll be a little more – because I don't – even if Austin Peay's trying to, lighten the box and try to –
you can run past them.
I think you're going to – I think you can just do more things against those guys. And I think – you probably, in the short amount, if things go the way it's supposed to in the short amount of time that Joe's playing, you probably don't want all of his throws to be sideways throws, right? You probably want him and his receivers to kind of get in a better rhythm and get all those things going. So I think you'll see Tennessee probably be a little bit more aggressive vertically in this game. And I don't know that Austin Peay really wants to. Do they really want to line up with 6 in the box and give up 10 yards a carry? I'm not sure that that's a way that they're going to play defense either. So I think Tennessee will take more chances vertically.
Appreciate you guys, as always, sending in these questions every single day every single week for the Thursday Mailbag Podcast here at Volquest.com. It's presented by our friends Exterior Home Solutions. Give them a call today, and you can get a free estimate, 865-524-5888. It puts the East Tennessee community first. That's Exterior Home Solutions. They are rooted in the trusted source, the first choice for roofing and exterior home renovations. And again, 524-5888 for a free estimate today. That's Exterior Home Solutions. Tennessee and Austin Peay, the home opener, be at Neyland Stadium, 5 o'clock Eastern time. Going to be a stream game. That one game of the year that's streamed, that'll be on the SEC Network Plus and ESPN Plus. Just like you watch a baseball game, the majority of those, that's how you're going to watch the football game this weekend. For Grant Ramey, Brent Hubbs, Austin Price, I'm Eric Kane. Thanks so much for being here and listening to us on the Volquest podcast.